Speed racing. Might as well. I'm walking through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page, but we still read that book, and we still run that race. Mississippi racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi racer riding out till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi racer riding out, wheels stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Hey, red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Happy Monday, or actually happy Tuesday, partner, coming off of a long, great, relaxing weekend.
Well, Mo, as you know, football is getting closer. Thursday and Friday are the big kickoff games of the NFL season. And if you are a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, things are looking a little bit brighter in the Bay Area. Not only did Brandon Ayuk sign last week, but word out of San Francisco this morning is that Trent Williams and the 49ers are finalizing their deal, which means, Mo, there is only one person in the NFL who is still actively holding out, and that is Hassan Reddick with the New York Jets, which brings us to our first story, and you can take it with a grain of salt, but Mo, I am a big believer in the fact that where there is smoke, there is fire. There are two independent, although anonymous, but there are two independent reports from beat writers that there is absolute turmoil in New York Jets world heading into the regular season. They basically talk about the fact that Aaron Rodgers, despite what we thought was a little bit of the changing of the guard in New York, because remember, when he came in there, Mo, it was the Aaron Rodgers friends and family plan. It was all of his buddies. It was anybody that he wanted. Remember the rumor that he had the list, and he gave the Jets a list of everything that he wanted, player and personnel-wise, and they just went out and started signing people that were on his list. I believe there was some truth to that. And as the season went on and as the offseason went on, some of the people that we thought were a part of the friends and family plan are no longer in New York. So it looked like they were getting away from that. But Mo, this report that came out over the weekend was that no, that is not the case. It is still very much the Aaron Rodgers show. And a lot of this centers around the fact that I think he missed 2 or 3 days of mandatory workouts. He went on to some radio show, Mo, and was talking about basically, what is mandatory, what isn't mandatory. I was there for the first 10 days of it. I missed the last 2 days. I had a vacation that was already scheduled and planned before this schedule even came out. People make a big deal out of nothing just because you put the name mandatory on something, but what really is mandatory? When I was there for basically all of it in the first place. And Mo, these two reports are basically calling that the tip of the iceberg. They're describing the New York Jets building as walking on eggshells around Aaron Rodgers, the explosions that he is having during practice and at players, the fact that he is not connecting with his teammates, which is interesting because it looked like midway through last season he was connecting with his younger teammates throughout various reports. That was a lot, Mo. What do you make of the rumors and innuendo coming out of Jets world? Again, if there was nothing, there would be nothing, right? Like if there was nothing to this, if this was complete BS, and everything was just fine and there was nothing to any of these other things, there would be nothing. Beat writers aren't going to make up crap about their own team to cause turmoil, because Mo, you know what happens to beat writers when they step out of line. They don't get around the team anymore.
I'm going to say they're no longer beat writers, right? Look, I think that with Aaron Rodgers, there's always comes a degree of drama. I mean, he managed to make front pages in Green Bay with drama in Green Bay.
Right.
So you put Aaron Rodgers in New York City with that media and that coverage. I think there's going to be a degree of drama. And look, I do think that he's still very demanding. I still think that in some ways there's a little bit of a silent war between he and head coach Robert Saleh about who's in control. I think Aaron thinks he's the boss without actually saying it, but I think he feels like it's not like I have to listen to what this guy says. I'll say this. If they win games, if they're as good as people project them to be, everything the beat writers say, whether it's true or not, won't matter. Like, the results on the field is all that ultimately matters. If they come out Monday night, punch the Niners in the face and beat the Niners, who, look, it's my team, but the Niners are one of the better teams in the league. But if they start their season off with a convincing win over the Niners, I think the beat writers, again, whether they're right or not, the product and what they do in the field is all that matters.
I agree. And when you're talking about the New York Jets schedule this season, it's tough out of the gate. It's tough out of the gate. They have the 49ers. But after that, the NFL definitely did Aaron Rodgers and company some favors. So win or lose against the Niners are a Super Bowl contender coming out of the NFC. Win or lose Monday Night Football, Jets and Niners, it's not going to be the end of the world unless they get blown out. If the Jets look ridiculous on Monday Night Football and, they lose 35-10, that could be a different story. But if it's a competitive football game and the Jets lose, not the end of the world, because they come off of that Monday Night Football game and they go to Tennessee. That's a W. Their home opener is week 3 against the Patriots. That's a W. Then they stay at home and they welcome in the Denver Broncos. That's a W. Then they go on the road to the Minnesota Vikings. That's a W. Mo, this is a 4-1 or 5-0 start if you are the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers, unless something weird happens. Because I'm sorry, I don't see the world where the Jets are going to lose to the Titans, Patriots, Broncos, or Vikings, because they are head and shoulders better than those 4 teams. Then you get your next actual litmus test. Your first one was against the Niners, week 1. Your next litmus test is going to come week number 6 against the Buffalo Bills. You get them at home. October 14th. It's an 8:15 game. I don't know if that's a Monday night or a Sunday night, but it's a primetime game. So now you got the Bills. Then after the Bills, guess what? The league still loves you, because they're going to put you on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who could be a complete dumpster fire by then. Justin Fields could be their starting quarterback by then. You don't know what the Steelers are going to be at that point. And then even if the Steelers are a middle-of-the-road team, you follow that up with going to the Patriots. That's another win. Then you have your next litmus test in prime time against the Houston Texans. And then the league is nice to you again. Cardinals and Colts. Back-to-back weeks. Then you got the Seahawks. Then now the end of their schedule, Mo, Dolphins, Jaguars, Rams, Bills, Dolphins. The final 5 weeks, business. Business picks up the final month of the season if you are the New York Jets. But man, Roger Goodell just lined it up for Aaron Rodgers. No difficult back-to-back games the entire season until the final 5. And then it's a brutal end of the season stretch for the Jets. But up until that point, Mo, their hardest games, and they're spaced out. The Niners in week 1, and then you get the Bills in week 6. Then you get the Texans in week 9. Then you get, that's it. That's it until you hit that final stretch of Dolphins, Jags, Rams, Bills, and Dolphins.
Look, like you said, I'm sure this is coincidence, but it looks like Roger Goodell set Aaron Rodgers and the Jets up for success. I actually think that they're going to start off 5-0. That's what I believe. I think they're going to start off 5-0, unless what the beat writers reported where there's dissension in the ranks. Because if they lose a couple of games, like you and I talked about, to the Patriots, there's something wrong. There's something wrong eternally in that team. There's dissension, maybe with the coaching staff or Aaron Rodgers. But I think if they're what they could be projected to be, I would not be stunned at all if they start the season off 5-0. Like you said, at the end of the season, business picks up, but by then they could be well in the double digit wins.
And Mo, the other interesting thing is we talked about their end of the season schedule. Dolphins, Jaguars, Rams, Bills, Dolphins. At the moment, none of those are primetime games. But look at all the primetime games they have before that. They got the Niners, that's 1. They got the Patriots, that's 2. 9:30 a.m. I don't know if they're overseas or where they are for that game in October, but that's 3. Bills at 8:15 is 4. Steelers is 5. The Texans is 6. The Colts is 7. They got 7 primetime game. Basically every other week they are playing a primetime game before they get to the final 5 games of their year, which is going to be the toughest stretch of their schedule. So Mo, not only are they not playing their toughest stretch until the final 5 games, not only are they not playing hard back-to-back games in basically the first 14 or 13 weeks of the season, they're getting some of their cupcake games on prime time. So the entire world is going to watch the New York Jets beat up on the Minnesota Vikings or beat up on the New England Patriots, because those are 2 of their early primetime games. Monday night, they got the opener against the Niners, and then it looks like there's Sunday night against the Patriots, Sunday night, that 9:30 a.m. game against the Vikings. They got the Steelers in prime time. It's going to be all roses, or it should be, for the New York Jets early.
I actually think they could have put Jacksonville on primetime too. They're going to beat them too. So, I mean, if we're just talking about teams they're going to beat the Jaguars. So they could have put them on primetime too. They're good to go. They're squared away.
Mo, Thursday night, we got the Chiefs and the Ravens. Obviously, you know what quarterbacks are asked. It's same questions, just reworded a little bit. Lamar Jackson was asked about the hype around the rematch against Mahomes after the AFC Championship loss. The last time that Lamar was on the field, it was against the Chiefs. Didn't go as planned, despite them being the favorite in that game. So Lamar gave what I feel is the cookie cutter answer for any quarterback in that situation. He downplayed it. He basically said, any game I play in, I feel like it's a revenge game. I'm not hating on Lamar Jackson. People are going to say I'm hating on Lamar Jackson. I'm not hating on Lamar Jackson. Why can't we just acknowledge the elephant in the room? Why can't we just take a page out of pro wrestling, Mo, and say, to be the man, you have to beat the man? Because isn't that what this is if you're talking about Patrick Mahomes? Let's be honest. Who is the pressure on in the Baltimore-Kansas City game? It ain't Patrick Mahomes.
No.
Because the last time we saw him in the Ravens, he was beating them in the playoffs. What has Patrick Mahomes done 4 out of 5 times in his career? He's beaten the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Lamar is 1-4 against the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. He is 0-1 against them in the playoffs. He is expected to lose this game. I don't care if the Chiefs beat him by 1 point on a last-second 45-yard, 55-yard field goal, or if the Chiefs beat him by 17 points. If the Chiefs win this game, Mo, nobody bats an eyelash. Great start to the Chiefs season, and no one bats an eyelash at the Ravens either. The narrative is the same. Lamar, they can't beat Kansas City. It's only week 1. Not going to see him again till the playoffs. Plenty of time to make adjustments. They're still going to win the NFC North. Nothing changes. The only narrative that changes, Mo, is if the Ravens beat the Chiefs. Because again, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And if Lamar beats Mahomes, I don't care if it's week 1. I don't care if the Chiefs might have some rust. I don't care what spin you want to put on it. But if Lamar beats Mahomes in week 1, Ravens fans and the national narrative will hold on to that for the next 17 weeks. Because as you're predicting playoff matchups, Mo, what are people going to say? Well, back in week 1, Lamar and the Ravens beat the Chiefs. If they face each other again, they just beat them this season. They got the recipe to do it. Right. That is going to be what everyone says. That is a game changer. That is a needle mover as far as momentum goes. If the Chiefs win, nothing changes. So I don't believe Lamar Jackson when he downplays this, because he knows what's at stake. He knows what the rest of the season is going to set up as. He knows what the stories are going to be, Mo, if he wins this game. If he wins this game, they're the favorite to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC for at least going into week 2. And then we'll see how the rest of the season plays off with some of the other heavy hitters in the AFC. But if he wins this game, that sets up his narrative and the Ravens' narrative for the rest of this. Stop BSing us and telling us this is just any other game and you play every game like it's a revenge game. You don't roll in to games against the Indianapolis Colts like this is a revenge game. This is the revenge. Knock it off. You don't do that, okay? Tom Brady did.
Right.
Tom Brady did. You don't do that, Lamar.
Right, and it's not like you roll into New England and go, "We got to get them back." Like,
up until this offseason, Mo, apparently Lamar wasn't even involved in game planning. Like Harbaugh had to come out this summer and be like, "Lamar, we're getting Lamar involved in the game plan now."
Right.
Great, wonderful, about time. Welcome to the NFL, Lamar.
And I think you brought up the biggest point. This game absolutely means everything to me, to the Ravens and their fan base. They need to believe that they can beat Kansas City, even though it's a week 1 game. And if they see them down the road, people with common sense will make the argument the team they play in the playoffs will be a different Chiefs team, right? They'll maybe they're sharper, they're better. But yeah, I think for their mental psyche, it matters to them to be able to beat the Chiefs. Matter of fact, I'd go a step further. I don't think they want to barely beat the Chiefs like 13-10. I think they want to dominate them, because that is a bigger message being sent. Even though I would still argue what the Chiefs look like in week 1, I doubt they'll look the same when you hit the playoffs. But for the mental psyche of not just the Ravens, but their fan base, yeah, this is not just, it's just another game. No, I know it's week 1, but it absolutely is a big game for the Ravens.
No, I want to circle back to our Jets conversation. I missed Chris Hackney's comment over here in the chat. He said if the Jets win week 1, they're going to roll early. If the Jets lose week 1, there is going to be some pressure on them week 2 against the Titans. I don't think they'd lose to Tennessee, Mo. Right. But what if they did? Now that's a different that's a different conversation. You don't bat an eye if the Jets lose a good game to the Niners. You walk away saying Super Bowl contenders. Right. We could see that matchup again in February. But if the Jets roll into week 2 and they take an L to the Tennessee Titans, now the entire narrative has changed. Now it really is New York is burning around Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh.
Not just New York would be burning, but suddenly that beat writer would be on every national television show saying why he thought that this was where it was going to be the first 2 and what's really wrong with the team. He will become one of the most famous guys in all of New York. Look, I don't disagree with what Chris Hackney said. I do think they're going to get off to an early start. The schedule says they should get off to a good start, but the games are played on the field. What if they are rusty? What if this offense isn't in line with their defense and they don't look so good and they struggle early? And if they look, I don't want to kill Titan fans, and Titan fans are like, we're really, really good. Like,
No,
I
you're not.
mean, they're not, but it's good to have hope. It's always good
It
to
is.
have hope.
It is.
But in all reality, come on, you're not
You're not.
you're not good at all.
You're not good at all.
Like if they lose to the Jets or the Jets lose to the Titans, I have to believe, and I don't want this to happen, that Aaron Rodgers was injured, right? Early in the first quarter, he was injured, and then they ended up losing. But even then, I actually think the Jets would still win. I just don't think much of the Titans as a football team. I think the Jets will be fine, even if their offense gets off to a slow start and they're not explosive, because of how dominant that defense can be.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about before we get there. I don't care what business it is. Could be sports, could just be business, could be your small business, your stay-at-home company. I don't care what it is. When one person is in charge of something for an extended period of time, and I'm talking a decade or longer, and in some cases 2 decades. When one person is in charge of whatever it is for an extended period of time, and then they are no longer there, things are naturally going to change. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the better. But when you bring in someone new and the system's basically been the same for 10, 12, 15, 20 years, whatever new thing that person does, big or small, Mo, it's going to have a ripple effect because you ain't seen it in the last 10, 12, 15, or 20 years. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes people get distracted by the little things and they're not paying attention to the big things. And that's what I am seeing right now with Alabama and the New England Patriots. I saw a story over the weekend. It wasn't a story, it was a social media post. And it was the Alabama defense doing some sort of an end zone celebration following an interception. And that is something they were not allowed to do under Nick Saban. When they intercepted the ball underneath Nick Saban, you gave the ball to the official, you got off the field, you got the next unit on, we kept things moving. Oh, but he's old, he's crotchety, let the players express. It is what it is. Those were his rules, right? That was his system. Just like I saw the social media post a week and a half ago. I don't know the gentleman who's taking over the head coaching job of Alabama, but they showed his office. And they showed his new office compared to what Saban's office looked like. It was modern. It was very chic looking, Mo. It looked like it was a very state-of-the-art office for a 2024 football program. Whereas Nick Saban's office looked like it was last designed about 20 or 30 years ago. He probably didn't have people in his office every year updating how it, you know what I mean? That's
not a designer.
That's not who he was, right? Then I see the story this morning from the New England Patriots. Head coach Gerard Mayo is going to allow the Patriot captains to put the C on their jerseys. Bill Belichick didn't allow that. He had captains, but they didn't wear the C on their jerseys. He didn't believe in that. He didn't believe in players standing out from other players. You all do your job. You all work as one. You are all Patriots. I see both sides of it. But Mo, at the end of the day, if you ask me, it's an end zone celebration after your defense makes an interception. It's an office chair. It's an extra piece of fabric on a jersey. These are all things that are going to happen when you bring in a new regime, when there's been a previous regime there. And in this situation, in Bill Belichick's situation, we're talking decades. 20 plus years, Bill Belichick was the head coach of the New England Patriots. If you don't think there's not going to be changes when he walks out the door, of course there's going to be changes. He's no longer there. If you don't think that after a decade plus or however long Nick Saban was coaching Alabama, when he walks out the door, the next guy in, there's not going to be subtle or in some case drastic changes. Of course there is, Mo. But we live in such a world where everything has to be bigger than what it actually is. Oh, Mayo's in touch with the players. He's letting the captains wear the C's on their jerseys. This is the sign of a new time with the Patriots. That's great. Mo, that's great. Talk to me in 15 weeks when your team has 2 wins and Jacoby Brissett looks like Jacoby Brissett and Drake May's first couple of games in weren't that great. Do we care that they're wearing C's on their chests? Do we care that the captains are allowed to be the captains? Or talk to me if you're an Alabama fan when you lost a game you probably should have won because there was a head coaching gaffe that Nick Saban probably wouldn't have had. But it's okay, though, Mo, because they can celebrate in the end zone when they get interceptions now. Some things matter more than other things in life. I get it. Everyone's excited about the change. Oh, we're in touch with the players now, Mo. It's going to be fine. Maybe it will be. But let's not forget, New England Patriot fans, you had 20 plus years of the greatest coach in NFL history at the helm of your team. Alabama fans, you had a decade plus of the greatest college football coach in the modern era as part of your program. To sit here and see last week and this week and this morning how these fans are reacting to end zone celebrations and new office chairs and captain C's on the jersey. It's interesting, Mo, because how soon you forget greatness when greatness is no longer in your building.
And then how soon you're reminded of greatness when the Patriots get off to an 0-4 start,
right?
Or an 0-5 start. When Alabama isn't in the college football playoff, or maybe they actually get there, but like you said, there's a coaching mistake or a gaffe that Saban wouldn't have made. I look, both these guys are following legends. I mean, when you say the line "tough act to follow," it's Bill Belichick, it's Nick Saban. I'm okay with. I can see both sides of it. I see Mayo trying to carve out his own niche, do his own way. I get that. What I would say in Mayo's case, though, is everybody knows when you look at the Patriots roster, top to bottom, right now, if we're being real, they're not set up to be great. They're not. No matter who the coach is, they're not going to be very good. So I'm not sure those C's on the jerseys are going to have the impact that he wants them to have. And in Alabama, because they usually always get a great draft class and have some talent left over, they are set up for success. I believe, and I'm not sure, I think their coach, I can't remember his name, but I think he was the coach of Washington State, right? When he Michael Penix coach. So maybe he's coming in there and he's thinking like, well, I won multiple titles in the Pac. Was it Pac-10? Where I just know that he won a lot of titles within the league they were in. The point I'm trying to make is, though, having that big office, trying to be Joe Stylish and all that, there's nothing wrong with that until you lose. There's nothing wrong with that until those boosters in the fan base start burning up your phone and want to talk to you about last week's game. Sometimes it says a lot if you leave a certain kind of tradition or style in place, right? Maybe you transition easier instead of trying to make sweeping changes. Again, I'm one of those people that ultimately what they do on the field is all that matters. If Alabama is still one of the top teams in the nation and they're there when it comes time for selection for the playoffs, then they're going to love that coach, right? They're going to be like, it's been a smooth transition. If Gerard Mayo, look, if he can get the Patriots to 5 or 6 wins, he's a hell of a coach. He is. He's a hell of a coach. So I look, the changes, like I said, I can see both sides. But ultimately, again, what you do on the field is all that's going to matter to your fan base. It's all that's going to matter to the media. So I would just tell both of those gentlemen, brace for it.
Let's talk a little Dak Prescott, shall we? Last week, Jerry Jones was very, very, very candid. He was asked straightforward, has there been any movement in working towards a new deal for Dak Prescott? And he said, no, the situation is unchanged. It was a passing comment. That was the end of it. Well, nothing is that simple for Jerry Jones because later on in the day, he had his, I don't know how many times this man speaks to the media every day, but he was in front of a microphone again, and he decided to expand upon his comments from earlier in the day because apparently that wasn't good enough, Mo. And he said, quote, "You could easily say, if you haven't seen it by now, you haven't seen it." Got it. Now keep in mind, this is your franchise quarterback. This is the guy that was an MVP candidate for the majority of last season. Not a couple years ago, last season. But if you haven't seen it, you kind of know where you are. Well, Prescott was asked about that, Mo. Dak was asked about Jerry's comments, and Dak said, quote, "I stopped honestly listening to things Jerry Jones says to the media a long time ago. It doesn't really hold weight with me." He was then asked about whether or not he's going to have a contract by week 1. And if he doesn't have a contract going into the first game of the season, what that means. And Dak said, "I think it says a lot, if it is or it isn't." Well, Mo, it's not getting better in Dallas with Dak Prescott, that's for sure.
I know we talked about this a couple of times last week. I actually think even though he can't publicly say this because it would be bad PR. I don't think Jerry Jones plans for the Cowboys to be that good this season. I actually think, and I'm not using the word tank, but I think what they're looking for is the opportunity to draft their next quarterback. I really do believe that. I think that he can't, again, bad PR, but if the Cowboys were having an 8-win season or less, I think Jerry would be fine with that. When you use the words "I'm all in," but you actually don't do anything in terms of bringing in more talent or bolster up your roster where you have shortcomings, and everybody in the world is getting paid, Chris. Everybody in the world is getting paid except for a franchise quarterback. He's the only man that can't get no money. Only man. All the wide receivers in the world can get paid. Trent Williams is actually getting his deal renegotiated. He can get paid. But Dak Prescott, an MVP candidate, who is one of the better quarterbacks in football, can't get paid, can't get no money. Can't get
an offer. Can't get an offer.
Can't get an offer. And I feel like Jerry Jones saying the things that he says, I think that I don't want to say he's setting Dak up for failure, but I think he'd be fine if Dak didn't play that well this year. I think that he's looking for a reason.
It would make his life easier.
Yeah, it would. But I think that's what he's got. I think he's going to be like, we're not going to be that good. And Dak's going to be the natural scapegoat, right? He's a quarterback. He's the highest profile guy on the team, especially if you're the quarterback of the Cowboys. I think they've already moved on from him with him still being on the roster. And I think that Dak's going to do his very best to have another great season so he can walk out of there, you know what I mean, into a $60 million contract elsewhere. But I
hope he brings him to a Super Bowl. Dear Dak Prescott, they don't even got to win it. They don't even have to win it. Bring the Cowboys to a Super Bowl and then turn down the contract afterwards and be like, no, and just leave and just walk out the door.
He should use Jerry's words too when he talks to the media, like, when you don't see it.
Right. I really was thinking about him as an owner these past couple of weeks, and I'm just like, if I haven't seen it by now, I'm not going to see it. So
exactly.
I got to go quarterback the New York Jets.
I've never seen an owner talk as much as Jerry Jones does to the media. At some point, if you're trying to look out for your team, for the psyche of your quarterback and everything going forward, you'd stop talking. But I guarantee you, this is the last time we hear from him on this subject. I give Dak a lot of credit for being a professional and being like, I'm just going to put my head down and play football and let the chips fall where they may. Look, if Dak has an average season and they're not very good, he's still going to walk into a big contract elsewhere. Yep. But if he has a great season, and like you said, should he win a playoff game or two, I'm still walking away.
Right.
I'm still walking away because it took you forever to respect me and pay me.
100%. I don't know if you saw Coach Prime and his post game press conference a few days ago, but Coach Prime was calling out the haters. Mo, he was calling out the haters after Colorado's opening victory in the season, basically telling them, "You all wanted us to lose. You are all upset because we got the W. You wanted us to take an L." Mo, Coach Prime is never going to change. That is why people who love him love him. That is why people who don't like him are never going to like him. He is always going to be that person. He's also the same guy that when he walked into the press, the media scrum after the game, the first thing he acknowledged was the fact that the air conditioning was off. And he actually apologized to all the media and he said, "Listen, I told them to keep the damn AC on. They're trying to save money by this nonsense. I told them it wasn't okay. I apologize on behalf of the school. This is nonsense, and we'll get it fixed for you next time." He's also that guy. So you look at him, and you're gonna have the guy that calls out the person that employs him as pinching their pennies and not treating the media people correctly, and then the same guy 5 minutes later is gonna sit there in front of you, Mo, and tell those same media people, "You wanted us to lose. You didn't want to be talking about how we pulled it out. You didn't want to be talking about the W right now. You wanted us to lose. You wanted to be talking about how we messed up. Sorry, come back another week. It's not happening this week." You take the good and you take the bad with Coach Prime.
You do. Look, he's always been polarizing. He's also that guy that he, along with the school who backed him, that they've basically cut off a local beat writer. He's not allowed to ask questions anymore. He's allowed to listen in, but he can't ask any questions. He's also that guy. Look, I watched the game. They did win, but they kind of barely won. It was a close game. They didn't
play well.
They didn't run away with them.
Except for Travis Hunter. He had a great game. That guy.
Tremendous.
Holy cow.
Yeah, what a freak athlete. Yeah, he's an amazing football player. He stood out, but if you watch the game, they actually didn't play well in the first half. Their defense was just leaking left and right. To their credit, they got a lot better in the second half, but it was a competitive football game. I feel like every week you watch Colorado, if nothing else, their games will always be very entertaining, but I don't know if they're going to get to a bowl this year. I honestly don't. I really don't know.
I mean, the pick that Shedeur threw was absolutely brutal, bouncing it off the defender's calf who was laying on the ground. It was just brutal. But again, you know, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with the NFL genius Gene on the show. They don't have the easiest schedule to open up. We thought that they would have scheduled, you know, a couple more cupcake games early in the season to try to pad it a little bit, see if they can get themselves back into the AP top 25 like they did last season, but they didn't. And maybe that's to their credit. Maybe they said, you know what, we want to win a couple of games early on that people thought we might lose or we may not, you know, be competitive in. We'll see. I didn't walk away from their opening performance feeling super confident about the team, but you never know what you're going to get week to week in college football. So who knows? Maybe they clean it up. They look a little bit better next week. But you always know what you're going to get with Coach Prime, and that is to expect the unexpected. Mo, I don't know if you saw Tom Brady's interview this past week, but he was doing something for Fox, and he's sitting in this room, and in front of him on this table, there's like 19 binders or 20 binders or something. Mo, he's kept every single play, not even playbook, play schematic from every season that he was a starting quarterback. He has it all organized into binders. So like he opened up the 2016 binder, and inside the 2016 binder is every game plan from every game that season. It's every call sheet from every game that season. It's all the prep materials that he would have been given or he would have reviewed for every game that season. And he's done it for every season he has ever played. And he said, in case I need it, in case I want to look back and be like, what was going on with this coach or this player or this team at that time, I can literally be like, let me pull out the 2008 binder. Let me go into week 14, and I can tell you exactly what happened that week because I got it all right there. Mo, this guy's going to knock it out of the park as a broadcaster. He is going to knock it out of the park. And he said he's going to do the same thing every season he broadcasts. He is going to have a binder for every year so he can keep his notes and he can review stuff year over year and he can build his portfolio. Tom Brady is one of one. And the more we get a little peek behind the Tom Brady curtain, we are understanding more and more why he had the success that he had in the NFL and why some players just couldn't hack it playing with Tom Brady. And believe me, it wasn't a Tom Brady issue. It was a them issue. As much as you want to say, Coach, and I'm not taking anything away from Coach Belichick in this particular situation, but you can sit here and say, oh, some people just didn't get along with Coach Belichick, and that was probably the case. But, Mo, I guarantee you, some guys just couldn't handle Tom Brady's work ethic, and that's why they didn't work out with the Patriots, because much like, and Peyton Manning was the same exact way, we've heard that story. I forget who the receiver was, but he tells this story all the time. He tells the story about how he ran the wrong route on a first down play. He came back to the huddle for second down, and Peyton benched him in the huddle, sent him out of the huddle and to the bench. And he gets to the sidelines, and coach goes, "You're still in." He goes, "No, I'm not. Peyton said don't come back." And that's in the middle of a game. They were Brady and Manning, and you can add a few more names to that list. Built different, Mo. Built different. And Tom Brady was asked last week, he was asked about starting quarterbacks being thrown into the fire early. And his answer was very polarizing. He basically said they've dumbed down the NFL game. That's the only reason a rookie quarterback out of college can come into the NFL and start week one. He goes, "You couldn't do that when I was playing." He goes, "When me and Peyton and Breeze and Montana and Elway and Marino," he goes, "how many guys, how many first year day one rookies did you see starting games and having success during that time?" He goes, "Sure, some teams did it, but how many had any success?" He goes, "The answer is none, because it was a different game back then. It was harder." He goes, "You look at the NFL today," he goes, "everything is watered down. Everything is dumbed down." And then he even went on to express it because he was asked by the host, I believe it was Stephen A. Smith, who asked him the question. And Brady told a story. He goes, "Listen," he goes, "here's how it works." He goes, "I would get the play call." He goes, "When I got the play call and I heard the play, I knew why we were running it. I knew why we were running it because I knew what the prep was going into the week. I knew what the defense was. I knew what their personnel was. I know what the game situation is. And in that moment, 3 seconds after I received the call, I know exactly why coach is calling it based on what he thinks we're about to see on the other side of the ball." He goes, "I walk to the line, I look at the defense, and one of two things happens. It confirms why that play call was the call, and we are good to go. I'm going to hike the ball. Or it was the wrong call because the defense did something differently. They lined up in something we weren't expecting them to do. They knew what the play call was going to be, so they adjusted to the play call, at which point I changed the play to a play that's actually going to work. And then we hiked the ball." He goes, "Today, you got a go route on. The quarterback walks up to the line, sees that the defense knows the go route is coming, and they still hike the ball." He goes, "Now, is it everyone across the board? No." He goes, "But you didn't see that 15 years ago. 15 years ago, 9 times out of 10, it's a timeout or they're going to change the play." He goes, "The quarterbacks that couldn't do it, that didn't have it, they at least had it enough to realize this play ain't going to work. Timeout." Today, they still hike the ball, and they're running a play that's never going to work. because the defense knows the play. The defense is prepared for the play. There is a 0% success rate of the play, but quarterbacks today still run it. And he asked Stephen A the question, when are we going to start blaming the quarterbacks for not putting your team in a position to run a play that has the chance to be successful? And Mo, it was like a 6 or 7 minute diatribe that Brady was going on. And I'm sitting there watching this video and I'm like, God damn, he's right. Because what happens, Mo? We look at some of these, Will Levis, some of these other younger quarterbacks, and what do we? O-line. O-line's got to protect him. He can't. What can he do if the O-line can't give him 4 or 5 seconds? Well, maybe it's not the O-line, Mo. Maybe it's the quarterback just didn't call out of the called play, and now they're standing back there patting the ball for 4 or 5 seconds, waiting for the deep route to get open. That was never going to get open because the coverage bracketed towards the outside receiver, and that's why he's holding the football, because it's never going to be there. So, of course, he takes the sack. His mind. Brady's mind is incredible, Mo.
When I listen to Tom Brady talk football, it's the same way I feel when I hear LeBron James talk basketball.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
He can literally recall a play that happened early second quarter on an out-of-bounds play where somebody was supposed to set a pick, and then all that kind of detail. And then he even had the numbers for the quarter. Like I went 1 for 3, but I did take 3 threes, and I should have. Just breaking it down like that. Brady's the same way. And yes, what he said was polarizing. And I don't completely agree with all of it, but I think he is right. But it's also because of where the league is now, the pressure that franchises and coaches feel. We got to put these young guys in. We didn't draft him this high for him to sit on the. They remember back in the day, and Brady knows if Drew Bledsoe doesn't get hurt by Mo Williams way back when, Tom Brady's not the starting quarterback. My guess, if Drew Bledsoe goes on to be Drew Bledsoe, who was actually a really good quarterback, Brady might have sat for another 2 or 3 years. He wasn't going to just take Drew Bledsoe's job, because that's not how it was done back in the day. It was a different game. The young guys came in, you sat and you learned from a veteran. Montana didn't start right away. He sat behind Steve DeBerg. Actually, a lot of guys sat behind Steve DeBerg. He was always the placeholder for the next. I think who did Marino sit behind? Was it DeBerg too, or was it John Stock or somebody like that? But I watched Dan Marino walk up to the line of scrimmage, look it over, and if he didn't like what he saw, he would change the play, or he would go and he'd walk back over and go, they already know what we're doing. Unlike
that ain't gonna work. Try again.
Right, that ain't gonna work. And you can appreciate this. There were times when him and Shula yelling at each other. He's telling Shula, "It's a dumb play. It's not gonna work." Like Brady is right. I don't want to say they dumbed down the league, but I don't think they give these young quarterbacks. I think they need more time to develop. And these young quarterbacks, I don't think they're nearly as obsessive as a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. Like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady's first guys in the building, last guys to leave. And then they're looking at the other guys when the other guys go, yo, man, we just practiced. And they're like, we can go again. We can do this better. There's not a lot of guys built that way in the current NFL. So I think Tom Brady has a strong point. Look, coming from the guy that's the GOAT, when he's in that announcer booth, if people appreciate what Tony Romo does, they're going to love what Tom Brady does.
And Mo, it's almost the Kobe thing, is it not? I mean, you've heard that story where Kobe's just going through his pregame workout. The guy from the other team comes out and is just shooting around, and Kobe goes another 45 to 60 minutes just because he wanted to outperform the guy on the other team who just came out to warm up, even though Kobe was going to be done in 5 minutes. Because in Kobe's mind, you don't beat me ever. You don't beat me during the game. You don't beat me during practice. You don't beat me during shoot around or warm-ups. You never beat me. So in that moment, Kobe felt like, I'm going to show him. I'm going to outwork, even though he doesn't know we're competing right now.
Right.
I'm going to outwork him.
Right.
That's
The
a
other guy,
whole different level of mindset right there.
it is. The other guy has no idea they're in competition, by the way.
Right.
This
He's just like, man, Kobe works out for 3 hours before the game.
He's like, this guy's working up a serious sweat. He's like, I just came to do a little shoot around. Like, wow. Like, yes, Kobe Bryant is built that way. I think Michael Jordan, I think LeBron James, the ones that are just obsessed with being great, Chris, they're built that way. They'll do extra. They'll put in the extra work. Tom Brady is the kind of guy, we talked about this. He has a studio built in his home. He's already done several live shows, even though we don't know it, to make sure he's as sharp and as detailed as he needs to be. I have no idea. I guarantee you he's going to crush it.
Well, before we get out of here this morning, let's talk a little WNBA, shall we? I did not think at any point I would be saying this right now, but the Indiana Fever, Mo, are above 500 after a 1-8 start. Let me say that one more time. After a 1-8 start, the Indiana Fever are currently 17-16. They have gone 16-8 since their 1-8 start. 16-8. That is the same number of wins that the Phoenix Mercury have this entire season. And then you look at, and you got to look at the rest of the league. The bottom part in this playoffs here, who's it going to go to? Right now, the Chicago Sky, 11-21. They've lost 6 in a row. They're tied with the Atlanta Dream, who are also 11-21. Then you got the Mystics and the Wings. They're both at 9-23, but they're only 2 games out of the final spot in the playoffs. Mo, I think we are entering the territory of honestly saying, can the Fever win a first-round playoff matchup? Because if they stick with the 6th seed, they're going to do what? They're going to play the 3 seed in the first round, which right now is it's either going to be Minnesota or Connecticut. At this point, I'm not going to sit here and say they can't win that series. If they play the way they've played their last 15 games, they can be competitive in a series against either of those 2 teams. I still think they're completely outmatched by the New York Liberty, but I think that series could be closer than what we've seen in some of the earlier games this season between the Fever and the Liberty. But am I crazy to sit here looking at the WNBA playoffs and saying we might see Caitlin Clark in round 2 of the playoffs?
I don't think you're crazy at all, because if you've looked at what the Fever has done over this stretch and how they played, they found their identity. They're an up-tempo team. When they play up-tempo, when they play because they spread you out and they attack you before you can get your defense set, they're fun to watch and they're hard to guard. Caitlin Clark is so much more effective when she can operate in space. And I think they've learned that. Like, so nobody's standing around just watching her play now. Got everybody's active, bodies are moving, the ball moves. Yes, she's the head of the snake, but she's got some balls on her side now. I think the young lady's name is Kelsey. I want to say Kelsey Mitchell. I think she's averaging like 19 points a game, shooting 47% from the field, almost 39 from 3. So they've got some bucket getters. They play with pace. I absolutely think they can win a first round series if they play at their pace. I guess every team, what they want to do is slow them down and make it more of a half-court grind. But again, that's easier said than done now that they're playing the way they're playing. So you're not crazy at all to say that they can win a first-round series.
Yeah, Kelsey Mitchell's over there. She's averaging 19 a game. Aaliyah Boston has been playing well for this team as well. I mean, Mo, you're looking at a team, and I got the history in front of me right now. 2020, 2021, 2022. They didn't win more than 6 games, 6-5. Last season, they go 13-27, and look at them now, 17-16. They still got 7 more games before we get to the WNBA playoffs. And when you look at the standings and you look at how they're playing, they're only 2.5 games behind the Seattle Storm. Mo, we could be talking about them getting up to the 5th seed. With 7 games to go. It's not outside of the realm of possibility when you are playing as well and they're winning at the clip that they're currently winning, 2.5 games in 7 games is not insane to think, especially if the Storm stumble the next 7 games, and they're only 3.5 games behind the Las Vegas Aces, who are currently the 4 seed. So if either one of those teams gets into a little rut and loses, 4 or 7 down the stretch, depending on how their schedule shakes out, you could see them move up one more spot in the playoffs, which again, we sat here. I'm guilty of it. They started off 1-8. I said, damn, it's a shame we're not going to see Caitlin Clark in the playoffs because this team is absolutely terrible.
I said it too.
And now they are over 500. Absolutely insane. Mo, take us to a close on a Tuesday.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
Hey, make sure you're back here, same time, same place tomorrow. We have our weekly NFL picks coming up. The NFL genius himself is going to be on the show tomorrow. All of that and more. Coffee and sports. It's the morning show, powered by Wire to Wire Network.